The wind over the shattered plains of Varus screamed like a wounded titan, thin and icy as it sliced across the rust-colored horizon. The planet had once been blue, green, vibrant, at least according to the fading histories Kai Nern studied as a boy. Now, it was a graveyard of broken continents and star-bleached ruins, a monument to the war no one wanted to remember. Kai trudged forward, boots crunching across brittle stone as cold needles of air stabbed at his exposed cheek. His collar was pulled high, his backpack heavy with gear, and his eyes fixed on the training outpost ahead, a cluster of metal boxes stuck like splinters in the barren ground. Lights flickered around its perimeter, dimming under power fluctuations the technicians kept blaming on dust storms. But that felt far too rhythmic to be natural. He was late. Again, Kai was used to the cold. Border Patrol, posting for 3 years, made sure of that. But today felt colder, like the planet resented his presence, its silence whispering warnings he couldn't quite grasp. Sergeant Voss stood waiting for him at the gate, arms crossed, jaw sharp as the serrated cliffs behind her. "You move like an old cargo hauler with one engine," she barked the moment he stepped within earshot. "Transport delay," Kai answered, forcing his tone respectful but not subservient. "Excuses don't matter," Voss said, jerking her thumb toward the plaza. "Tradition does. The others finished their induction hours ago. Your turn." He followed her into the central courtyard, a space cleared of debris and ringed with old banners bearing the Federation emblem. At the plaza's center stood the statue. Kai had seen hollow pictures, but the real thing stole his breath, that a woman of the cyan species, carved in pale stone that seemed to glow faintly under the dying sunlight. She sat with arms open, expression serene yet sorrowful, eyes closed. Time had cracked her face, worn her fingers smooth, left her covered in centuries of dust. The last sin, the instructors called her. A relic, a surrenderer, a symbol of the Federation's victory over the Cyan Empire. Kai had always hated this ceremony. He stopped before the statue, staring at the ridges carved into her cheekbones, so delicate, so precise it almost felt like they rose naturally from skin instead of stone. Sergeant Voss stood behind him like an executioner. "You know the drill," she said. "Kiss the forehead. Seal your commitment to the peace." Peace. The word tasted like ash. Everyone knew the kiss wasn't about peace. It was about dominance. The Federation never admitted it, but a symbol of a conquered enemy, forced into ritual, spoke loudly enough. Kai stepped forward, leaning in. Something about her face unnerved him. The stone seemed thinner here, almost translucent, like frozen moonlight. And beneath it, he could swear he felt pressure, a pulse that he frowned, hesitating. "I swear," he muttered, "if this thing wakes up and curses me," Voss snorted. "Just do it, nah. The only curse here is your attitude." He took a breath, leaned forward, and touched his lips to the statue's cold forehead, cold, hard, lifeless. Then, a tremor hummed through the stone. A vibration délicate, rythmique, impossible. Like a heartbeat struggling awake. Kai jerked back. "Sergeant, did you feel?" He didn't finish. A thunderous crack ripped through the plaza. The sound vibrated up from the statue itself, webbing outward across its entire form. Thin fissures glowed from within like molten veins. Dust exploded off its shoulders. The ground shuddered beneath Kai's boots as lights around the outpost flickered and died. "Kai, move." Voss shoved him aside, reaching for her calm command. "This is Sergeant Voss. We have a structural failure," and the static answered her. The statue's head tilted. Stone eyelids shattered, revealing not sculpted hollows but glowing blue eyes. Real eyes, flooding the plaza with an eerie, liquid radiance that Kai's breath hitched. Not stone, not hollow, alive. The statue exhaled, an actual breath, as thin ribbons of dust spiraled from her nostrils. Her chest expanded. Stone cracked along her limbs and torso, falling away in chunks that revealed smooth, luminous blue skin beneath. She unfolded from her seated position like a creature waking from centuries of sleep. Taller than any human. Graceful, though her joints trembled from long immobility. White-blue hair spilled over her shoulders, glowing faintly in the twilight. Her eyes found Kai instantly, pinning him with a gaze that cut deeper than fear, something ancient, mournful, and powerful. "You kissed me," she said. Her voice was soft, melodic, strangely warm for someone emerging from a stone coffin. Not accusatory, not frightened, merely stating fact. Kai swallowed. I didn't know you were alive." She blinked slowly. "Now they will return. The seal is broken. The signal is sent." "What signal?" Voss demanded, training her sidearm on the woman. The alien woman didn't even look at her. "Your weapons cannot undo what has been done." As if summoned by her words, a piercing, high-frequency whine erupted overhead. Kai spun toward the sky, and his heart froze. Orbiting satellites, long dormant relics of the Cyan War, ignited in a chain reaction, their lights activating one by one like a constellation waking up. Ancient transmission arrays buried beneath the surface burst through the ground, sending dust and stone raining across the outpost. The woman lifted her face, eyes closing briefly as if listening to voices only she could hear. When she opened them again, they held pure sorrow. "They have heard," she whispered. "They are coming." The ground beneath Kai dropped away. His stomach turned cold. This wasn't a ceremony anymore. This was an awakening to a warning, a doom, and he had triggered it with a kiss. The dust storm had begun to settle, leaving the canyon floor draped in a thin veil of red particles that shimmered like powdered rust. Leo staggered forward, one hand pressed tightly against the torn fabric of his suit where the Raider's plasma bolt had burned through. Each step sent a dull throb up his ribcage, but he forced himself to keep moving. He had survived worse. Earthquakes, cave-ins, even that time an entire survey drone collapsed on him during training. But this planet always found new ways to threaten him. The rocks around him hummed faintly. Granulite. 8 wasn't silent. Its very ground vibrated with distant tectonic movement, as if the planet itself was breathing. The canyon walls rose like ancient giants, layers of mineral veins glowing faintly with internal bioluminescence. It would have been beautiful if not for the blood on his gloves. Leo leaned against a jagged outcrop, trying to catch his breath. His visor flickered again to warning, vitals drop detected. "Seek medical care immediately." He winced. Not exactly useful advice out here. He pushed himself forward, eyes scanning the terrain. Where were the others? Where was his team? The ambush had been so fast. Raiders dropping from ridge lines, shock mines detonating beneath their boots. The last thing he remembered was the scream of a Varen child, hiding under a collapsed spire. He had shielded her until the rest of the team evacuated, telling him they'd circle back, but they never did. Humans weren't the strongest species in the galaxy. They weren't the fastest or the smartest or the most technologically advanced. But there was one thing they didn't abandon people. At least, Leo didn't. He forced himself up a steep rise, boots slipping on loose gravel, until he reached a ledge overlooking a narrow ravine. And that was when he saw her a T first. Leo thought she was part of the terrain, curled, still, half covered in dust. But then her eyes flickered. Silver irises. Alien, unmistakable. A Varen woman. She was young, maybe barely out of adolescence. The faint patterns of bioluminescent markings trailed across her cheeks like luminous vines. Her breathing was faint, shallow. A thin shard of metal, shrapnel from the Raider detonation, was lodged in her side. Leo froze. Not because of fear. Not because she was alien, but because he recognized her. She was the one the Raiders had been chasing before the ambush. The reason the survey team scattered. The reason he had been shot, that he approached slowly, crouching beside her. Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, glazed with pain. She tensed instantly, trying to back away, but she couldn't move more than a few centimeters. "Easy. I'm not going to hurt you." Her voice was barely a whisper, airy and melodic. "Human, why are you here?" "Leave. Raiders will return." Leo shook his head. "Not leaving you here." She stared at him as if she didn't understand the words, as if saving her was the last thing she expected. "Name?" he asked softly. She hesitated. Sarai. Leo exhaled. All right, Sarai, let's get you out of here. He examined the shrapnel. It was buried deep, dangerously close to vital organs. Removing it here could kill her. Leaving it would kill her slower. His visor displayed her biometrics. She was rapidly destabilizing. He didn't know Varen anatomy well, but he knew enough about trauma to recognize dying when he saw it. He tore open his med pack, hand steady despite the trembling of exhaustion. Sarai watched him through half-lidded eyes. Human Y, your team left me. They evacuated. I didn't, but you could die. Leo smiled faintly. Yeah, seems like a fair trade. She blinked, clearly unable to comprehend why anyone would risk themselves for her. In Varen culture, survival was prioritized by utility. The weak were left behind without hesitation. It was considered efficient. Logical. Humans were many things. Logical wasn't one of them. Leo cleaned the wound, wincing at the amount of blood pooling around her. Varen blood glowed faintly, like molten sapphire. Beautiful and terrifying. This is going to hurt, he warned. It already hurts. He steadied his breath and used the micro-extractor to pull the shrapnel free in one swift motion. Sarai screamed. Not loud, but sharp enough that it cut through the canyon like a blade. Her markings flared bright white. Reacting to trauma, Leo immediately pressed a sealant patch onto the wound, activating the biogel. It hardened into a protective, translucent layer, slowing the bleeding. But it wasn't enough. She needed proper treatment. Soon, her eyes rolled slightly. Why save me? Because that's what humans do. No, she whispered. Others ran. They left me. Leo paused. Yes, he admitted. But that doesn't mean we all do. She studied him with confusion, pain, and something else, something like disbelief. Humans were strange to her. Illogical, reckless, unpredictable. She had always been told they were dangerous because their compassion made them irrational. Maybe they were right that he lifted her carefully, bracing her weight. She cried out again, but clung weakly to his shoulder. You're going to be all right, he murmured. A distant hum echoed through the canyon. The distinct mechanical growl of raider skimmers approaching. Sarai's eyes widened. Their return, Leo tightened his grip. Then we move. He stumbled down the ravine, supporting her with every step. The ground vibrated. Dust drifted off the ledges. The hum grew louder. Sarai looked at him, breath trembling. You cannot fight them. You are wounded. I am a burden. Leo laughed softly despite his pain. Trust me, Sarai. Humans carry heavier burdens than this. The sky darkened as the raider craft swooped overhead, their shadow gliding like a predator's wing. Leo pressed himself against the canyon wall, shielding Sarai with his own body. She felt it, the way he placed himself between her and danger without hesitation. No strategy, no calculation, pure instinct. An instinct her people didn't have. An instinct that made humans unpredictable. An instinct that made humans dangerous. And an instinct that, for the first time in her life, made Sarai feel something she had never felt before. Safe. The canyon narrowed into a stone throat, forcing Leo to half-carry, half-drag Sarai through a passage barely wide enough for a human. The bioluminescent veins in the walls pulsed faintly, lighting the way in cool blue. His own blood dripped in dark streaks across the glowing rock, mixing with the shimmering sapphire trails from Sarai's wound. Behind them, the raider skimmers thundered like angry beasts hunting down prey. Leo's breath rasped harshly through his helmet. His lungs burned. The plasma wound on his side throbbed with each movement. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Sarai's voice trembled. You will collapse. Let me go. They want me. If I stay, you will die. Leo tightened his grip. Not happening. She tried to push herself off him, but her strength was gone. Her hand only brushed against the rock before she fell back into his arms. IT wasn't lost on her how tightly he held her, how determined his steps were. Her people would never risk so much for someone they didn't know, especially someone injured and slowing them down. Humans were strange. They were different. They were dangerous because of it. The canyon opened slightly, revealing a cluster of crystalline pillars that rose like frozen lightning. Leo ducked behind one of them just as a raider skimmer swept overhead. Searchlights slicing the darkness, a harsh metallic voice echoed through the canyon. Target life signature detected. Pursuit teams converge. Sarai shuddered. They will not stop. Varens are valuable to them. Our bioluminescent lines can be harvested. Leo clenched his jaw. He had heard rumors, but hearing it from her made his stomach twist. So that's why they wanted you? Yes. Her fingers curled weakly. I should not have run alone, but I had no choice. He didn't ask why. Not yet. Another skimmer descended, hovering low. Leo pressed himself and Sarai tight against the pillar, holding his breath. The vehicle's red search beam swept across the ground, lingering dangerously close to Sarai's body trembled. She felt his arm tighten around her again, as if instinctively placing himself between her and the beam. Humans were reckless and brave, and so very strange. The beam moved away. Leo exhaled shakily. We need to keep moving. There's a survey shelter 2 kilometers south. If we reach it, I can send a distress call. Sarai shook her head. You cannot outpace them while carrying me. Watch me. He lifted her again, adjusting his hold so her head rested against his shoulder. She winced but didn't protest. Yes, they moved deeper into the canyon. The terrain shifted, the rocks sloping downward into a labyrinth of narrow corridors and steep drops. The air grew cooler. The ground beneath them hummed with faint vibration. Leo recognized the signs. We're close to a geothermal vent zone. Dangerous, but good cover, Sarai whispered. Your team will not be there. Leo paused for a moment. No, they were forced out, but they'll try to reach me if I get a signal out. Humans come back? She asked softly, almost disbelieving. Always. She closed her eyes, absorbing that word in Varen culture. There was no always. Only survival, efficiency, and logic. Bonds were situational, temporary. The weak were abandoned. The slow were liabilities. But humans were tied to something else, something irrational, something she couldn't name. They continued deeper until they reached a ledge overlooking a cavern carved by geothermal erosion. Steam drifted from cracks, creating a shimmering fog. Below them, a narrow path twisted like a serpent. Leo lowered Sarai carefully. His muscles trembled with fatigue. The edges of his vision blurred. Sarai frowned, concerned. You're wound. You are losing blood. Yeah. Well, humans are stubborn. We don't die easily. Her gaze softened. You bleed too much. So do you. She managed a faint, pained laugh. Mine gelodbluvisse. Yours does not. Then her expression changed. Fear flashing across her face. Leo whipped around. The raider stood on the ledge behind them, tall. Armor plated in matte black. A visor glowing crimson. Its weapon hummed with crackling energy. Human. Surrender the Varen. You will be spared. Leo stepped between Sarai and the raider, his own body forming a shield. No deal. The raider tilted its head. You cannot protect her. You are injured. She is worthless weight. Give her up. Sarai flinched. She had been told the same thing by her own people before she escaped. But Leo, he didn't even hesitate. She's not worthless, he said, voice steady. Not to me. The raider's weapon charged. Leo pushed Sarai behind a rock. The plasma bolt fired. He dove sideways, rolling behind a crystalline pillar as the blast scorched the ground where he had stood seconds before. The pillar cracked, glowing fractures spreading like spiderwebs. Leo grabbed a shard of broken mineral, sharp as obsidian, and flung it at the raider. It struck the visor, momentarily distorting the enemy's vision that he used the chance to sprint forward, ignoring the pain ripping through his side. The raider swung its weapon toward him. Leo tackled it. Both of them crashed onto the rocky ground. The raider's arm pinned him down, metal fingers closing around his throat. Sarai's eyes widened. She struggled upright, gripping the rock wall as she fought to rise. Now, the raider hissed. You fight well, human, but you are weak. Leo gritted his teeth, forcing a strained smile. You haven't met many humans. With a sudden twist, he drove his knee into the raider's rib plating, finding a weak seam. The raider jolted. Leo grabbed a loose rock and smashed it against the visor. Once, twice, the visor shattered. The raider screeched, flailing blindly. Leo rolled away, snatched the raider's fallen plasma blade, and activated it. The blade hissed with pale blue fire. The raider lunged. Leo met it head-on, .1 swing. Precise, human. The blade cut through the raider's exposed throat. The creature dropped, collapsing in a cloud of dust. Leo staggered, gasping for breath. His hands shook. The blade fell from his grip with a dull clang. Sarai stared at him, stunned. "You killed a raider while wounded, yeah." He wiped blood from his mouth. Turns out humans don't like being told to abandon people. She stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. Not as a human, not as a stranger, but as something terrifyingly unique, something dangerous, something good. Leo leaned against the rock wall, breathing heavily. "We need to move. More will come." Sarai nodded weakly, her eyes shining not just with pain, but with something new. Trust. He lifted her again, muscles screaming. Behind them, more skimmers echoed through the canyon. Ahead of them, only danger and darkness. But together, they moved forward. Humans didn't abandon people. Not today. Not ever. Leo's steps grew heavier with every meter. The canyon floor vibrated under his boots as raider skimmers closed in from all sides. Sarai clung weakly to his shoulder, her breath shallow but steady. Her bioluminescent markings flickered with each heartbeat, glowing softer and softer. They emerged into a wide, circular basin, an ancient geothermal chamber. Its ceiling collapsed centuries ago. Sunlight poured through the jagged opening high above, splintering into beams through drifting steam. At the far end stood what remained of an old Varan structure, the shattered gate, a fractured archway that once connected deep tunnels to the surface. Leo set Sarai gently against the arch's broken base. His knees nearly buckled as he stood. Sarai looked up at him, her voice trembling. "Leo, you can barely stand." He forced a tired grin. "Yeah, but I'm a human. We're bad at knowing when to quit." She closed her eyes briefly. "Why do you refuse to leave me?" He paused, wiped the sweat and blood from his brow, and knelt beside her. "Because you matter." Her eyes opened, surprised, vulnerable. "To who?" "To me." She inhaled shakily, the words striking her deeper than the wound ever could. Before she could speak again, the screech of engines echoed through the chamber. The raiders had arrived. .3 skimmers dropped into the basin, dust exploding beneath their thrusters. A dozen armored raiders dismounted, armed, precise, and advancing in a tightening circle around the shattered gate. Their leader stepped forward. Taller, heavier armor, crimson stripes marking command. He raised his weapon and pointed directly at Leo. "Human, you delay the inevitable." Stammt Azida. Leo planted himself in front of Sarai, cracked knuckles trembling but ready, not happening. The commander tilted his head. "You are wounded. You can barely hold yourself upright. Why sacrifice yourself for her?" Leo exhaled slowly. "Because that's what humans do." The raider's visor pulsed. "Illogical." "Yeah," Leo smirked. "We get that a lot." The commander motioned, and 2 raiders began approaching from the sides. Leo grabbed the fallen plasma blade he'd carried since the canyon battle. Its energy cell was weak, flickering, but still alive enough to cut. He whispered to Sarai, without turning. "When things get bad, crawl to that tunnel behind the gate. It goes deep. You can escape." Her voice broke. "I will not leave you." Leo smiled sadly. "Then I guess we're both illogical." The raiders charged. Leo lunged. The first enemy came in fast. Leo ducked under the swing, rolling to the side despite pain screaming through his ribs. He slashed upward, the blade cutting through the raider's arm plating. Sparks burst like dying stars. The second raider swung a heavy shock baton. Leo blocked, the force rattling through his entire body. He retaliated with a tight punch to the creature's throat seam. The raider sputtered and collapsed, but the world swayed. Darkness pulsed at the edges of his vision. His wound burned like fire. The commander advanced, weapon charging. "You cannot win, human." Leo coughed, spitting blood. "Doesn't mean I won't try." He charged again, swinging the plasma blade with everything he had left. The commander blocked effortlessly. Leo stumbled. The commander struck, a crushing blow to Leo's chest that sent him crashing to the ground. His blade skidded out of reach. Sarai screamed, "Leo!" He rolled onto his back, gasping. The commander stood over him, weapon aimed at his heart. "Your resilience is impressive," the commander said. But misguided, Sarai struggled to her knees, blood pouring from her side. Her luminous lines flickered as she reached toward Leo. "Stop, please." The commander ignored her and prepared to fire. Leo stared up at the smoking barrel, chest rising weakly. This was it. But even now, he didn't regret anything. Then a soft glow flickered at the edge of his vision. Sarai rose unsteadily, not running, not hiding, but placing herself between Leo and the commander, arms spread wide. The commander hesitated. "Move, Varen." "No," she whispered as Leo's eyes widened. "Sarai," her voice wavered, but her stance did not. "He saved me. When my own people left me. When logic said leave the weak behind, he stayed." She looked back at Leo, pain and gratitude shining in her silver eyes. "I will not abandon him." Her bioluminescent lines flared, brighter than before. Not the dim flicker of a dying Varen, but the blazing glow of something awakening inside her. The raiders stepped back, momentarily stunned. Varens did not protect others. "Ever," the commander growled. "Foolish." He fired, but the shot never reached its mark. The shattered gate behind Sarai suddenly roared to life, ancient circuits awakening for the first time in centuries. The entire arch erupted with radiant energy, pulling the blast into itself like a gravitational whirl. The surge of blue light exploded outward. Leo shielded his eyes. The energy ripped across the chamber, throwing every raider backward as if struck by a hurricane. Skimmers crumpled. Armor cracked. Screams echoed off the rock walls. And then, silence. The ground settled. The air calmed. The raiders lay unconscious around the basin, their weapons dead, their systems fried by the blast. Sarai collapsed. Leo crawled to her, ignoring the pain tearing through him. He reached her side and lifted her head gently. Her breathing was weak, but alive. She opened her eyes. "Did I save you?" Leo laughed softly, a breathless, pained laugh. "Yeah, seems like you humans aren't the only stubborn ones." She smiled faintly. "I am. Varen. Might want to rethink that." He whispered. She leaned her forehead lightly against his chest. "You changed something in me, something I did not know existed." He wrapped his arm around her shakily. "Guess that makes two of us." Above them, sunlight broke fully through the steam, casting long golden rays across the chamber, illuminating the fallen raiders, the ignited shattered gate, and the two unlikely souls leaning against each other, a human who refused to abandon anyone, and a Varen who learned what it meant to be saved. Leo exhaled softly, relief washing through him as distant rescue beacons blinked through his visor. His team had received the distress signal from the gate's activation. Help was coming. But even if it hadn't, at least neither of them had died alone. Sarai whispered, "Leo, what happens now?" He squeezed her hand gently. "We go home." And for the first time in her life, Sarai believed the word humans used so freely. Always.